Wednesday, April 6, 11:30 p.m. I picked up Kurt's best friend, Dylan Carlson, at his apartment. We went to a cafe where we ate and planned our strategy for locating Kurt and finding out what was going on. I asked Dylan if he felt Kurt was suicidal. He replied, no, not at all. He's under a lot of pressure, but he's handling things pretty good. I asked Dylan if he'd ever been told that the Rome incident was a suicide attempt, and he said, no, Kurt said it was just an accident. If Cobain was so suicidal, and if he had really tried to kill himself a month earlier, I wondered why nobody clued in his best friend. The guy he hangs out with, wouldn't they want Dylan to keep a close eye on Kurt? And if Kurt was so suicidal, wouldn't Courtney want to make sure Dylan didn't allow him to have access to guns? Dylan told me Kurt had been afraid of intruders at the house lately, and that he wanted a gun for protection. So he said he helped Kurt buy a shotgun to have at the house when he returned from rehab. He said Kurt didn't want the shotgun registered in his name because the police had just confiscated his other guns. He didn't want them to know he had this one, or they might confiscate it also. After leaving the cafe, Dylan and I checked out a drug dealer's apartment on Capitol Hill and several hotels on the Aurora Strip where Kurt had been known to stay from time to time. I mentioned to Dylan that Courtney had told me Kurt only stays at the best hotels. Dylan appeared puzzled. No, he doesn't. He usually stays in some pretty ratty places. While Dylan and I were driving around Seattle, I asked him if we should check with Kurt's mother in Aberdeen. Dylan replied, no, Kurt wouldn't go there. He doesn't get along with his mom. Thursday morning, April 7th, 2:15 a.m. We went to the Lake Washington house. I waited in the car while Dylan walked up alone as we had previously planned. We didn't want to alert Kurt to my presence if at all possible. Dylan came back to the car after at least 5 minutes saying no one was home. I wondered what took so long if no one was home. We went to a payphone and called Courtney. She was at Rosemary Carroll's house in Los Angeles. Dylan talked with Courtney. I told him to have her call the alarm company and ask him to turn off the alarm so we could go in the house. Upon returning to the Lake Washington house, we gained access through an unlocked kitchen window. While we were searching the house, Dylan commented, I've never seen the house this clean before. A television was still on in one of the bedrooms upstairs, and the bed was unmade. Dylan told me this was Callie's room. We didn't find Kurt. Dylan didn't tell me about the room above the garage, and since it was dark and raining, I hadn't noticed it. I dropped Dylan off at his apartment and went to my hotel for a few hours sleep. I picked Dylan up later and we resumed our search. We spent most of the day on Thursday checking out some of Kurt's hangouts and talking to people who might know where he was. As evening approached, we headed for the small town of Carnation, located about 30 miles east of Seattle, where the Cobains own 2 vacant cabins situated on several acres of property. But in the dark, Dylan became unsure as to whether or not he could locate the property. The increasing rain didn't help much, so we eventually turned back. We try another time. We stopped at a payphone and Dylan made a call. When he returned to the car, he said Courtney's had some trouble. She got arrested and she's in the hospital. Dylan eventually managed to speak with Courtney on the phone to get further instructions. Courtney wanted us to go back to the Lake Washington house to look for the shotgun. She said it could be in a hidden compartment in her closet. Since Callie had been at the house quite a lot, I wondered why she hadn't asked him to look there before now. 9:45 p.m. Dylan and I returned to the Lake Washington house inside. I found a note from Callie, which had been placed on the main stairway. It wasn't there the night before. The note read in part, I can't believe you managed to be in the house without me noticing. You're a fucking asshole for not calling Courtney. I had a feeling the note was intended for me to find, not Kurt. It just seemed phony. When I mentioned this note later to Rosemary Carroll, a person who knew Kurt, Courtney, and Callie very well, she agreed. Didn't it, Tom? Didn't it sound phony? On Thursday afternoon, April 7th, Callie told friends he was leaving for Los Angeles. Although I spoke with him later, later. I never got to see or talk to Callie while I was in Seattle looking for Kurt. I had the feeling he was trying to avoid me. Callie later claimed he was hardly at the house from Monday on. He said he wasn't staying at the house because Courtney kept calling and saying she knew Kurt was there. The obvious question, if Callie was hardly at the house himself, why would he find it so hard to believe Kurt had been in the house without him noticing? And if Courtney told Callie she knew Kurt was there, why wasn't she having us watch the house during our surveillance? Kurt is found Friday morning, April 8th. Dylan and I were on our way to the Carnation property once again. We stopped for gas and Dylan got out to make a phone call. When he came back to the car, Dylan said a friend just told him a body was found at the Lake Washington house. Was it Callie, Kurt, or someone else? We turned on the car radio and soon heard that the person found dead was Kurt Cobain. Dylan showed no reaction. Later we heard on the radio that Kurt's body was found in the greenhouse. I turned to Dylan and asked, "What's the greenhouse?" Dylan told me, "It was a room above the garage." "Why didn't we look there?" I asked. "It's just a dirty little room.